Welcome everyone. Today I'm going to show you how to make my jalapeno cheeseburger nachos. They are awesome. You're going to need a few things. The first thing you want is a big bag of Tostitos hint of jalapeno chips. You want to look inside the bag and make sure there are large chips in there. That's kind of important. Then you want to use a half a yellow pepper, a half a red pepper, one jalapeno, a bushel of green onions. You want one brick of Monterey Jack with jalapeno cheese, one brick of cheddar cheese. You want one package of oh so good bacon. You want a half a kilogram of lean ground beef, or extra lean is even better. You'll also want some chopped garlic, or you can even use garlic powder, and some oregano. We want to preheat our oven to bake at 350 degrees. Next, we're going to use our handy little cheese grater to grate both blocks of cheese. I like to use rubber gloves. I'm just a bit of a germaphobe, but you do need to be careful if you're going to serve these to other guests. Some gloves have latex and some people are allergic to that. So we're just going to shred both these bricks nicely into this bowl. A sore arm, and 7 minutes later I'm done grating the cheese. I'm just going to go ahead and cover that and put that in the fridge until I'm ready to use it. Next, we're going to move on to cutting up our vegetables. It's very important that you wash these under warm water. Not only can they have pesticides on them, you don't know what dirty person picked them up and put them back down in the grocery store. This green jalapeno is actually not very hot, but I'm only going to chop about half of it. And the reason for that is the Tostitos already have a hint of jalapeno, and we don't want to make the jalapeno too overpowering. I'm not going to show you how I chop this because most professional chefs would freak out, have a heart attack, and think I cut off all my fingers. So I'll be right back and hopefully I'll have all my fingers. Make sure before you chop the pepper that you cut out all the white inside and take out all the seeds. Bam! You want to make sure you finely chop the jalapeno. You want to have really small pieces like this. You don't want big pieces like that, because if you get several on those in one bite, it's going to overpower it. So again, just make sure all your pieces are that small, and you don't need that much. It's a half a pepper. I'm just going to throw that into a bowl. Now we're going to move on to the red and the yellow pepper. These are so good. I already told you to wash the vegetables under warm water, but if you didn't, make sure you do it. First, we are going to cut the pepper in half. And like the jalapeno, we want to remove all the white stuff in there and all these seeds. And the green top. Bam! Now we're going to chop it up. We're not going to chop it as finely as the jalapeno. We want the chunks to be a little bigger. Bam! So the jalapenos are looking a little lonely, so we'll add some friends. Now onto the red pepper, who's laughing because the yellow pepper just got cut in half and doesn't realize I'm about to do the same thing to him. So repeat the last step, just with the red pepper this time. Bam! The red pepper did beg me for mercy. Unfortunately, I had to advise the red pepper that resistance is futile. The yellow pepper seems to be beating up on the jalapeno, so I'm going to add the red pepper to interfere with that. Bam! They all got into a big scrap and realized none of them can win. So they got together and they formed a pepper union. Now for our green onions. I didn't show you this earlier, but these were actually longer. You do want to cut some of the top off because they're kind of rough and you don't really want them, but I've already done that. You also want to cut the bottom about here. You don't want that piece with that weird looking hair. So they'll end up by looking like this. You'll notice this here, I got it from the bottom at the white. It's thick, hard, and slimy. If you have any of that on there, just peel it off. They're gross. Now, you're just going to chop thin slices all the way up until you've chopped it all up. I usually do them 2 at a time. It just makes it a little easier. Bam! Now we're just going to go ahead and add these finely chopped onions to the pepper party. Now just go ahead and mix them all up in there. We don't want anybody feeling lonely, you know, we don't want any onion clicks, we don't want any pepper clicks. Just get them mixed up all good there. Then we're just going to put them in the refrigerator, cover them until we're ready to use them. Oh, look at the carnage from the veggie massacre I just committed. If my mother was here right now, she'd be like, oh, you gotta clean as you go. So I guess I'm gonna do that. We're gonna hide this evidence in a compost. Or you can just throw it in the garbage, whatever you prefer. This is baking me so hungry. So we're gonna move on to the bacon. What we wanna do is we're gonna cut the bacon in half, and then we're gonna lay it out on our baking sheet. The reason we're baking it in the oven is you can actually get a nice crispier bacon, which we really want crispy bacon. If you have bacon that is really fatty, it's actually a good idea to cut some of this fat off or pull it off just to be left with the red pieces. I just find it makes a better crispiness, but you don't have to. Now we are just going to lay out our bacon nice and flat until you've covered the whole tray in bacon. So now that we have our bacon all lined out, I'm going to show you what I do. I don't have anybody filming this. I'm filming it myself from my cell phone, and I don't have any tripods or gimbals or anything like that, so I can't show you what I'm actually going to do when it's in the oven. But you're going to put it in the oven, turn your oven light on, and keep an eye on it. Once it starts bubbling, the bacon, you're going to use a fork and start flipping it and moving it around. Keep doing this until you see that the bacon becomes nice and crisp. Just be careful not to burn it. Lay a thick layer of paper towels on your counter or on a plate. When we remove the bacon, we're going to put it on the paper towel and move the paper towel around to get the excess bacon fat off of the bacon. This will make it even crispier. You want the bacon to start looking like that. It won't take long. And then just keep using your fork, flipping it around like that until it gets nice and crispy. It should only take about 4 to 5 minutes to do that. Once the bacon's done and nice and crispy like that, just transfer it to a paper towel. Fold the paper towel over and pat it down. Move it around a bit. And then we're going to pat it down again just to get that excess fat and oil off of it. Now you're just going to transfer that bacon to a cutting board, and you're going to take your lovely little knife and just start chopping it all up. You don't want the pieces to be too small or too big. Bam! There we go. We got the chopped bacon. If you're a bacon fan, I find it very hard to believe that you didn't eat a piece of it while you were chopping it. If you find that you have some bacon pieces that have too much fat on them, just cut it off and discard it. Now we're going to transfer the bacon into another bowl. Just set the bacon aside until we're ready to use it. Boom! Hamburger time! Before we continue on with the hamburger, you want to open your fridge and tell your peppers and your onions to stop Netflixing and chilling, because you need them. So now off to the side, we'll have our bacon in a bowl, our peppers and onions. We have some garlic salt, which I prefer to use. You can use minced if you want. And some dried oregano. So back to our hamburger. We want to turn our oven on to medium-high heat. And we are going to season and brown our hamburger. We're gonna add a little garlic salt. You don't need a lot, just a little, or to taste if you prefer more. And we're gonna add some dried oregano, again, to taste. We're then gonna just mash the hamburger and continue cooking it until brown. Once we've browned it, we wanna drain any of the hamburger juice that's in the pan. This recipe is already fattening enough, so you want to get any fat out of it that you really can. I also like to add just a little bit of salt and a little bit of pepper to the hamburger. Just gives it a little extra flavor. So now that our hamburger is nicely brown, you can see all that juice, even though this is lean ground beef. Even with extra lean, you're probably going to get this juice. You really want to drain it out of the pan. Now that I've drained all the beef juice out of the pan, I'm going to grab the bacon and add the bacon back into it. Make sure you get all that good bacon. And mix that bacon in with the hamburger. Then grab your onions and peppers and dump those babies in. Get them mixed in there all nice. I just realized I was using a fork in a cast iron pan. You don't want to do that unless you want your mother or wife or significant other to kill you. So try using a wooden spatula instead. We're going to cook this for 1 to 2 minutes, then we're going to remove it from the heat and just let it sit on the warm surface of the stove. Now, this is where the magic starts to come together, and it is smelling really good. So you do want to pull your cheese from the fridge, and you want to make sure that it's all nicely mixed. Then you want to line your baking sheet with parchment paper. Now we want to place our first layer of Tostitos hint of jalapeno. You are looking for big chips like this. You want to avoid putting these on the bottom. We will use them, but not until we get to the top layer. So you're just going to look in the bag and find your big chips, and you want to start laying them, but try not to overlap them. So you want your first layer to have nice big chips, nice and flat like that. You will notice there's some gaps here, here, and here. Take smaller chips and fill in those gaps. Just try not to do too much overlapping. A little overlapping is okay, just not a lot. And that should be good for this layer. Now, the next layer is going to be our first layer of cheese. Just take the cheese and sprinkle it generously and evenly all over the bottom layer of the chips. So I've given a generous, even layer of cheese on top of the first layer of the Tostitos. Just be careful, you want to make sure you save enough cheese for the second layer. So I used about half. Now we want to divide our meat and pepper onion mixture into halves, because we're going to use half for the bottom layer and half for the top layer. And what we're going to do here is we're going to use half and we're going to sprinkle it evenly over the cheese on the bottom layer. Make sure you do it evenly and try to get all of the different ingredients all over. So it's gonna look like that. And now we need to do our next layer of hint of jalapeno Tostitos. This is a 275 gram bag. It works out perfectly. So you're gonna put another layer of the big ones on top and then just add all the rest of the small ones. You still want to try to keep it an even layer, but overlapping isn't as much of a problem at this point. You should just be able to dump any remaining small Tostitos right onto any of these spaces. I think I'm good, and I have a little bit left in the bag, so I'll just eat those later as a snack. They're really good on their own. You might think the next layer is going to be cheese, but it's not. We're going to use the next half of our meat veggie mixture. So once again, we're just going to spread our meat veggie mixture evenly over the second layer of Tostitos. Now we're done sprinkling our second layer of the hamburger meat and pepper mixture. And now we want to use the rest of our cheese. We're going to sprinkle it evenly over the top and use it all. Well, look at that bad boy. You may be saying, wow, that's a lot of cheese. There is no such thing as too much cheese on these nachos. You should still have your oven set to 350 and preheat it. You're going to put them in the oven and bake them anywhere from 10 to 20 minutes. Kind of depends on how much cheese you use. Just keep your eye on it, and you want to take it out when the cheese is nice and melted. Okay, it's been 10 minutes, and if you have a look there, you'll see that the cheese is starting to melt. However, it's not quite bubbling yet. You want the cheese to start bubbling. If some of your Tostitos start getting a little bit of a black edge, it's okay. They actually taste good like that. Just don't let them burn too much. So it's been about 15 minutes now, and you can see that the cheese is just starting to bubble, and some of the Tostitos are getting toasty golden brown. So now you want to take them out. You could let these sit for a minute or two, but you don't really have to. It's better to eat them hot and right away. So the best way to serve them is just get yourself a nice plate, a pair of tongs, and just dig in on whatever section looks good to you. You can start with this end. Look at that. Some on the plate there. I want more cheese. You'd be surprised, that small portion is very filling with all the bacon, hamburger, veggies, all that cheese. What makes these jalapeno cheeseburger nachos even better is sour cream. Take a nice big spoonful. No, make that 2 big spoonfuls. And then just, you can use a fork if you want, I just like to use my hands. Dip it in that and eat. Oh, that's good. If you're hosting a Super Bowl party where you have a bunch of drunk friends and you got the munchies, or maybe you're a little depressed and need some comfort food, this is your go-to recipe. If you make these, your friends and family will be super impressed with you and will likely brag around town about your awesome nachos. Thanks for watching, and please remember, like and subscribe.